The trail is a metaphor for change. Although hiking, and specifically endurance hiking, is now a big part of my day-to-day, it's not just about exercise. It's about transformation. Each step is a movement towards clarity, purpose, and identity. But movement is one thing, sharing insights gained is another. As a U.S. Marine veteran, I created this space to help other veterans gain clarity, purpose, and identity. Let's walk this path together. This is Trail to Transformation.
At Trinity Yoga Wellness Center, we've created more than a studio. We've cultivated a sacred space for transformation, physically, mentally, spiritually. A space where healing begins with breath. Here, we welcome everyone, those navigating anxiety, trauma, and grief, and those seeking purpose, strength, and stillness. With over a dozen expert guides and teachers, we meet you where you are and walk beside you. You are not alone. Visit trinity-yoga.com and return home to yourself.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Of course, you know me. My name is Dr. Keith McNally. I'm here with Reverend Chris Eaton. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on, Dr. Keith.
I appreciate that. I want to go back. I'm evaluating my own introduction, and then I have to talk about the other ad. So I'm assuming that's your ad, yeah?
Yes. Yeah, that's our yoga studio I own with my wife.
That's so cool. And the reason I always go back to my own introduction because I'm always evaluating whether I need to change it or not. Is it really hitting the mark? Are people, once they go through that 45 seconds, are they still engaged in the conversation that I'm having with people? But at some point, I'm probably going to have to do like a contest and say if anybody could recognize where any of those photos were taken, they could probably win a prize or something like that. But that's for me for another day. Chris, it's good to have you on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Everything in life just seems to be flowing, and just been really blessed. Yeah.
Well, blessed is a good word to have on the tip of our lips. I want to challenge you and I, if I can. What I haven't done on this TV show yet is to talk about emotions. I've talked around that idea. I've talked probably through the idea, but I haven't engaged with somebody to say how important it is to kind of be open and honest with ourselves about our emotions. And I say that to say because I'm in therapy. Through the VA, I'm now receiving a life coach. I've got a life health wellness coach for a couple of weeks or for a couple of months, really. And through my own spiritual training, I'm tripping over my words today. I'm being told that dealing with my emotions is critical for all of my life. So when I have conversations with people, when I watch a television show or driving down the road, if I don't have a balanced, steady state in my emotional structure, my PTSD can kind of go off the wall. My psychosis can flare up. So can we have that conversation today? I've monologued enough.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So where would we get started with that?
I like taking people down to how I grew up, and a lot of people that were in the 70s, 80s, 90s. I'm an 80s baby. We were told to be seen, not heard. Oh, you have an emotion and it's too much to go to your room, especially if it's one of the negative ones. And then as we navigate the professional world, as we get older, there's no room for emotions in the workplace. We have to stay professional and not bring that into work. And so that's kind of the world that we live in is, oh yeah, whatever, push it off to the side. And then we paint someone that does express their emotions too much as an adult as crazy or white jacket, put them on there. Or, there's the stigma with the females, unfortunately, where they're like, oh, she must be on. So there's all of these things that are like saying, no, don't express those. Don't touch that. Well, I have learned, I've shared my story with you of, going all the way to the point of suicide, numbing all these felt sensations that were in the body because it became too much. And I've learned if there's only two things that we are in this human experience is we have thought and we have felt sensations in the body, and we can label them as emotions. Sometimes the sensation comes first, like touch an oven. Ow, that hurt. Touch an oven again. Ow, that hurt. You idiot. How could you do that? Why would you do that again? Whatever. The thought comes in afterwards and fills in the blank of what we're doing. But then on the other end, we have a thought. And maybe it was a bad thought. And then we start feeling bad. Or maybe it was a really good thought. We found someone we really like. And we're like, ooh, I like that felt sensation. But how often do we actually talk about it and stop and think about how those two things interact, our thoughts and the felt sensations in the body? And so I wasn't taught how to explore it. And when I went through, I got addicted to alcohol. I had suicidal ideation. I attempted suicide in 2018, all this depression, anxiety, because it was all these thoughts that I didn't want to deal with. I didn't know how to deal with them. So I needed some help in there. And that's where I went to my therapist. I also learned that we have to feel and sit with these sensations that come to the body. Because they come and go. Let me know when I go.
All good. So we've had some technical difficulties, but I appreciate everybody hanging on. Reverend Chris, we were talking about felt sensations, but before you continue your part of the story, that's a unique term. I've not actually had somebody on the show talk about emotions as felt sensations. Are they really the same thing, or are we talking about two different things? Can you give us some clarity here?
So as I began to sit with those felt sensations, I began to notice that a happy sensation, typically we feel it over the entire body. It's not localized, but a negative sensation seems to mostly go into the stomach or sometimes into the chest, and things get tightened. And as I began to explore, like, well, what is that and why? Well, I went back, it circled all the way back to the military where we were studying fight, flight, freeze. Turns out that sometimes the sympathetic system likes to start locking up on us when we experience the unknown or when we experience an overstimulating situation. Maybe it's just something simple of there's, heavy metal music on there, kids are running through, the dog's barking, boss just dumped 5 hours of work and we only have a half hour left, so we know we got to burn midnight oil. That's overstimulus. Or maybe it's the fireworks that went off that triggered an old memory that makes us think, oh, so we feel this experience, and as that sympathetic starts getting triggered, fight, flight, freeze, we're not in a bad scenario right here. So why does the body sometimes get triggered? And the stomach begins to tighten, the chest maybe, the throat, and then maybe the fists start to go there, and we feel this sensation and we get frustrated with it. And I was taught, you just keep moving on. Maybe you go work out, or maybe you have a drink, something. But who told us that we had to sit there, just allow it to pass through, or maybe ask, where is this coming from?
Yeah. For me, that has always leaned towards aggression. I want to use the word violence. There was a time in my life where I would punch the wall because I would be so angry. And of course, this is post-military service. And of course, now, many decades later, I have a diagnosis that says, oh, I can now put my finger on it and say, oh, that's exactly what the experiences, that's exactly what's triggering it. And now I can have this correlation between 1 and 2 and 3 and say, when I follow this path, I'm punching a wall. I don't punch walls anymore. I've kind of gone past that.
Then there.
But the connection, we call talking about connecting the dots. The connection was there. I never saw it. Is there? With one, I got to ask the question: Is that normal? And then two, I didn't do anything specifically to say I want to go to treatment. That's going to be great for me. I delayed therapy. Heck, I didn't even know. And I was a social worker right out of college. So I knew that this mental health area existed, but I didn't need that. Can you talk to me about that? As best you can.
Most people get a car. We submit the payment. We fill up on gas. Maybe we check the oil every now and then, but we're not doing, the whole evaluation that we did when we were in the military, the walk-arounds, checking the tire, the pressures, and all these different things. It's a lot to really go through that evaluation, which is why we had a clipboard and we're like, yes, 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 yes. And then we turn that into the maintenance bay, and then the team comes out and they can address it. But we don't do that with our car. And how often are we taught everything to look at within this vessel? Mm-hmm. The vessel is much more complex, but I just thought it was a piece of flesh. We taught it how to walk. We taught it how to run. We taught it how to do push-ups. We taught the mind how to think or how to do a particular task. Maybe it was, this job or that, but we all adapt and we learn and all that. But what if someone didn't tell you that you need to go check this or check in on that? No one ever told me I needed to pause and think, hey, are you thinking negatively? Why are you so negative right now? Why do we see the entire world as, this? Not that it isn't, because there's some weird things going on at all times in existence. But to simply notice it and get addicted to it, or to simply notice that maybe we're overly positive. We're seeing the world as unicorns and rainbows when it's not. So it's that pausing and knowing what to evaluate. And the VA, and there's many other different systems out there, they have this wheel of life, and it's broken out into sectors, and it says your body, your mind, you've got your financial things, your family, your social life, and all of that. We should pause every now and then to notice what's working out for us and what's not. It's that little checks that go a long way. And that might be annually for you. Maybe you do it every December and you make your New Year's resolution. Maybe once a month you have someone that you sit down and they help you, they mentor you at a job, or they mentor you in your body and your nutrition or something. So first off is knowing all of the complexities of this human experience and what needs to have looked at. And I neglected quite a bit in many
You
of those
and me
categories.
both, yeah. I like the you mentioned the wheel of life, because although that it may be a term I'm familiar with, it's not something I regularly engage in. Guess what? Until now, because you know who brought it up? My life wealth wellness coach that the VA has assigned to me says we're going to take a look at life in these arenas, in these areas. For me, the PTSD has been there for a long time, and I've always been reactionary to stimulus. Right, and like I said, it's mostly in aggression. It wasn't until some colleagues of mine, some ex-army colleagues, said, Keith, you really need to take a deeper look at what's going on. And they were the ones who kind of prompted me, motivated me, almost sponsored me to say, you need to go get some things fixed, basically. what is, and this is, how I want to move the kind of conversation forward. Is there a fix? Is there truly a fix, or are we always in the process of finding new ways of kind of not being bad, or that's a bad word, not being on the negative end of the scale, being on the more positive end of the scale? What's really the navigational tool? And that's a big, vague, open ended question to find a way forward in life to kind of deal with those emotional, as you said earlier, felt sensation challenges.
Mm. Um, I could take a lot. My body, a lot of pain, emotions. I've been cheated on. I've been wronged. I've been, a lot of injustice things that go on there. And you're like, wow, this was a lot of experiences. And like, whoo, at one point, I thought it was like a pinball and a pinball machine. The world was getting all the points and I was the one losing, just going boom, 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 all this. Someone does this. I wish someone had filmed me when I was driving. That's possibly one of the easiest ways to trigger me, cut me off, or drive 35 miles an hour in the left lane. Something about that just really disturbs me. But so that's the trigger. That's the overstimulus. Something caused us, and now we react. So I see something, I hear something, I taste something, I smell something. I have a stimulus that came into my awareness. And sometimes I immediately react. I didn't want to react. That means that person had power over me. I did not want to. I want to choose my decision. I wanted to figure out a way to delay my response. Instead of it being an immediate reaction, I then can see, evaluate, put a filter or two in there, and then make the response that I want. And sometimes we don't have all that time to be able to go through this long analysis. So I started trying to research, well, how is it that people build space between stimulus and their reaction or response? So I studied the monks. I studied the Olympians. I studied the special forces. I studied consciousness. Eckhart Tolle, Joe Dispenza, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people, I don't know what it is that you read, but I wanted to know, like, how are they so composed under such immense amount of pressure? I mean, you're representing an entire country. If you're an Olympian, the entire world is watching you, and you're just supposed to not have any nerves. They do have nerves. So how is it that they set themselves up for success? How is it that they keep their mind clear so they could stay focused on the objective and not be pondering on things that they shouldn't be in that moment? How is it that the special forces are able to go overseas and still be able to make the right choice, even though sometimes it's a life or death choice that they have to make? If they were overly emotional and making the wrong decision, do they take the wrong life? So when I studied that of how to build the distance, breathwork is one of the fastest ways to be able to regulate that sympathetic system that likes to get activated really quick. It helps us by slowing down the breath and making the exhale longer than the inhale. It begins to slow the nervous system down, bring the heart rate down, and allow us to get into what some would call heart-mind coherence. And so when I started learning about the breath work, you could learn a different methodology and you can master the methodologies and stuff, but all it is just learning how your body interacts with that. So when we feel that sympathetic system start to build and the stomach is tightening and we're noticing the chest, or we're noticing we're getting irritated, or we're noticing like that anger, or we're going to punch the hole in the wall, we try to catch it earlier and earlier of like, wow, this person's really irritating me, or the situation. And then to slowly start breathing, to slow it down. So that's where the first part is learning how to notice that there is a stimulation that is coming. The sympathetic has someone's knocked on the door of it. It starts to tighten up the body as if we're preparing for a fight. And to just breathe. It sounds silly, and I can do it. I'm even doing it while we're doing this because I'm like, oh, am I going to say something stupid?
Wait, what are you doing?
Slowly breathing in, making sure, because sometimes when I'm in thought or I'm in a really good conversation, I might not be fully taking a full breath in. My stomach might be tightened. And when you're not breathing, you're losing oxygen, and your body's like, I need oxygen. And guess what? Sympathetic system turns on again. So constantly reminding myself that I need to breathe if I ever feel the trigger as I'm going through. So that's the first one.
Well, okay, well, we need this. Not that we're out of time, but I'm going to stop there because I'm talking to more and more people about how vitally important breath work is to literally everything. Calming the nervous system, staying alive, becoming more healthy. And here you are talking about the same idea, but you said you were like concentrating on your breath, right? I'm not. I'm like all in here, and like you could sometimes hear that I'm an asthmatic by nature, born that way. So not that I'm having an attack, but I'm not all. I may not be breathing right, to be quite honest. Am I breathing right, or what are you doing? What are you doing?
All right. So some of the easier things that I do, and I was 40 when someone's like, "You're not even breathing right. You're breathing as if you're stressed out right now." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "You're chest breathing." And I'm like, "Well, what does that mean?"
Yeah, what
So
does
they
that
had me
mean?
put one hand on my belly, one hand on my chest, and they said, "In a relaxed state of mind, when you're happy, your stomach is nice and soft, and you allow the air to fully expand. Look at a baby when they're relaxed, or look at an animal when they're relaxed, and you can see their abdomen rise and fall. So when we're doing that, we're getting a full breath of air. If your stomach is tightened, the scientists say that you lose 40 to 60% of your lung capacity, which means you're getting less oxygen, which means your body is going to probably go into more panic. It's kind of like if you know anything about having a CPAP machine and having to wake up because you're gasping for air. That's because they're sleeping and their body is still locked under a sympathetic attack, which is what I would call what I lived for 13 years in constant stress, wondering what's coming next. Hypervigilance is another word they like to throw on it. And so you're not really getting a full night's rest. It's like you get 8 hours, but then why was I waking up still yawning? Why did I have to have 3 cups of coffee and a monster drink? So the importance of being able to tell the body, hey, I know the mind is telling you this message, and maybe you ate a burrito with too much hot sauce on it, so your stomach's upset and it's locking, but I still make sure that I tell myself when I feel that anxiety building up, hey, dude, if there's no lion in the room and no one's shooting bullets at me, why am I getting tense? A lot of people get charged up and tense when they start talking politics. Get two opponents in the room, both of them, you'll see their stomachs start to tighten and they show these signs, and then we become argumentative instead of debating. But
Can you talk to me about the practice of breathing right? Like for a little bit, we got about 2 minutes, maybe less.
yeah,
I want to leave my audience, our audience today, who maybe that's exactly what's going on with me. Let's give them something to do so that they could kind of feel they could regain control of what's going on.
yeah. So if we notice that we're getting worked up, or whatever word you want to throw on it, overstimulus and all of that, the stomach is one of the first things. You can research fight, fight, freeze, and how the sympathetic, parasympathetic turn on. The sympathetic is the I need to protect myself. There's possibly something wrong, so we're going to brace for impact. So our body, our feet naturally go into the fight stance. Our stomach begins to tighten because we're going to protect the internal organs from impact. Blood starts shunting, so the hands and the feet can get cold, and we're ready. And part of that as well, what the part that we don't necessarily know is that your mind, if you don't keep your mind clear during a fight, and fighters, UFC, and all this can talk about that, is you have to keep that mind clear so you can still make decisions when you're in that. If you don't keep the mind clear, how are you going to play chess in a wrestling match? You need to be 6, 7 steps ahead of the person and be full observation. You
I'm going
can't
to leave
allow.
it there because we're running out of time. I'm
Yeah.
going to ask you to come back. We're going to do some practice if you're so
Yeah.
willing. This is a great
Yeah.
cliffhanger. Cliffhanger. Okay?
Yeah. Let's
That's
do it.
awesome. For everybody else, it was good to see you. And as always, I'll see you on the trail. Take care.
Thank you for watching Tread of Transformation TV. To support these conversations or to support the foundation, I would ask that you go to givebutter.com/T3missionorg. That's the letter T, the number 3, MISSIONORG. Or go directly to our website at t3mission.org and click the donate button. Or just scan the QR code as you see it on the screen. And as always, I will see you on the trail.